I love Rabbi Hannah. This video is great. Go back and watch it. Something she says towards the end struck me.
So many people really love Jewish culture, but dislike the Jews that are attached to it.
Yeah. Because mainstream YT, culture does the same thing with Black people. They love hip hop. They love the fashion. They love all of the great pop culture things that we provide. They like when we, tap dance and perform for them. They like watching us run around and toss a ball. But when it comes to our civil rights, our safety, our economic security, where are they? When I think about this kind of stuff, I realize how much of American culture is brought to you, mainstream YT racist people, by the very people that you hate. But that's kind of your thing. Music is the most obvious one. Every single genre of music that we enjoy today grew out of a genre of music that Black people invented. We invented jazz. We invented country music. We invented rock and roll, because that grew out of rhythm and blues and all those acts that worked what was known as the Chitlin circuit. During Jim Crow, you couldn't just perform at any club if you were a Black artist. So there were clubs that were owned and operated by Black people all over the South. And though when you toured the South with your band, or if you were a singer or whatever, or a comic, you worked those venues. Similarly, comedy. Stand-up comedy as we know it, also Jews and Black people. Comedy grew out of vaudeville, and then stand-up comedy as we know it was developed very much in the mid-20th century. So like 30s, 40s, 50s, you had Bob Hope. Again, he came from vaudeville. Fanny Brice also came from vaudeville. And many of the most popular comedians at the time were either Jewish or influenced by other Jewish comics. Lenny Bruce is a good example, Joan Rivers. And the Jewish comics, worked something called the Borscht Belt. And the Borscht Belt was the area in the Catskills, all those Catskill resorts, because of course at the time, Jews couldn't belong to the club that the Gentile white people belonged to. We couldn't get ourselves in the door. They couldn't get in the door. They were able to form their own social things, their own vacation spots, their own resorts. So there's a whole slew, or at least there used to be, I don't know if they're still there, a whole slew of mountain resorts. And if you were a Jewish comic, you would usually play those. And they called that the Borscht Belt. You're familiar if you've watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, season 2, we're going to the Catskills. Dancing. Yeah, that's all us. All the American dances, that's all us. Special credit to Irish people, because tap dancing, the legend goes that tap dancing was co-invented by a Black person and an Irish person in the Five Points, which was a very famous immigrant neighborhood in New York City. And there were just a couple of guys on the streets, and like the one guy started dancing, the other guy started adding to it. And it was kind of like I don't know if it was like a dance off or something like that, but we invented that together. Black people and Irish people. Good on you. You love the stuff we give you, but you hate us. So the most hated groups of people, Black people, Jewish people, homosexual people. I challenge you to name anything in pop culture yesterday, today, and probably tomorrow that wasn't brought to you by someone in one of those groups. Let's see, what else is American? Musical theater, the Broadway musical. Rabbi, that is almost exclusively y'all. Like I'm thinking all the mid-century about that. That's all y'all. That's all of y'all. The Rodgers and Hammerstein, Kander and Ebb, Irving Berlin. And there's a reason why there are a lot of Jewish people in entertainment, because for so long that was the only thing they were allowed to do. Back in the day, things like banking, or money lending as they used to call it, and acting, being an entertainer, these were very low class things. Like if you met a woman who was an actress and you like brought her home to your family, they'd be like, why are you bringing this 304 over for Thanksgiving? They entered the professions that they were allowed to, and they did okay. This is another great example of the don't hate the player, hate the game saying. Okay, side note, I really wanted to be a fly on the wall the day that Candor and Ebb realized that they had to write a schmatzy song for Cabaret. Anyone know the history of this? I bet they left at the last minute. They're like, oh, we got to write that schmatzy song, right? We got to write it. And they're like, oh, fine. I have no idea where this video is going. Like, I know I was going somewhere, but I lost the thread at some point and didn't get there. Oh, gay people. A lot of the people who created American culture were Black and gay, Jewish and gay. Michael Bennett, choreographer of Promises, Promises, Company, and famously a chorus line, Jewish. Indeed, he was a singular sensation. Jerome Robbins, choreographer, dancer, theater director, West Side Story, Fiddler on the Roof. What else? The King and I, Pajama Game, writers, thinkers, James Baldwin, Black and gay. Langston Hughes, also Black, also gay. All I'm really trying to say is this. If you're going to enjoy the culture that we provide to you, that comes with respecting us as human beings. You don't get to do that and then in the same breath dehumanize us. You don't get to enjoy the football, but then bash Colin Kaepernick. You don't get to get orchestra seats to the Broadway show and rave about how much you love it, and then the next day talk shit about gay people or Jewish people. Yeah, you don't get to do that. So if you've ever uttered the words, all lives matter, or said something about a Jewish person's nose, they control the media, they control the bank. If you've been against gay marriage when people were advocating for it, I'm gonna need you to cancel that Broadway subscription. I'm gonna need you to cancel your subscription to Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple Music, whatever. And if you have a record collection still, I'm gonna need you to hand over those records. Hand them over. You don't deserve them. There will be no more arugula or latkes for you. And I better not see any of y'all at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. Ever. I better not see Lizzo, Kendrick Lamar concert. No, you can't do that anymore. No more Netflix comedy specials. In fact, no more Netflix. No more Bridgerton for you. Yeah, I said it. You do not get to enjoy the artistic creations of the great Shonda Rhimes. And you certainly do not get to enjoy the angelic presence of Jonathan Bailey. And you absolutely do not get to enjoy Lady Danbury and her amazing hats and outfits. No more Lady Danbury, bad bitch of the Regency era for you. I think you're going to have to move. Because everything you enjoy here, we created that. One of us created that, or a group of us created that. So to the OG lady in that anti-Semitic video that the rabbi stitched, you need to step back, enjoy your Easter Mass, parade down the avenue in your Easter Sunday hat, but you need to stay out of Jewish people's business. Thank you for coming to my very random, neurospicy, disjointed, bizarre TED Talk.